hands up, who works for local government? Not very many. And, you know, local just beginning to feel its way in this new field. So I'm going to talk really about the local government role. What I'd like to start, though, with this is context. You know, why is this a problem? Why is local food a concern? Why local food systems? I'd like to talk about how we got into this current situation, because it's kind of a unique situation in terms of the history of humankind. And in terms of working towards solutions, I've just handed out a list of potential local government tools. And you know, local government, as I mentioned, is fairly new into this field. And still, I hear, even just 2 weeks ago, I heard one of my colleagues say, we have no mandate for this. You know, this is a local government's job. And that's frankly nonsense. You know, the province sets out the municipal purpose in the community charter, and it says that the purpose of local government is to foster the social, economic, and environmental well-being of their communities. Those are the three initial pillars of sustainable development put forward by Brundtland. So anything that's to do with sustainable communities is the mandate, is the potential mandate if the local government chooses for its community. And I'll give a quick overview of what we're doing with the North Standard for our whole community agricultural strategy. So the issues. This slide is about getting your attention. You know, why should we put money into this? Why should we put time and resources into this rather than parks or roads or some of the other many competing things that local government faces? So you know, we need to understand, staff need to understand, the community, the elected officials need to understand why this deserves our attention. So there's several issues here. Diminishing water. What is it, 1% of the world's water is fresh and only 1% of that is drinkable? And around the world, agricultural demands and drinking water demands are in competition. And the resource is being challenged. The largest known aquifer, or one of the largest known aquifers in the world, the Ogallala Aquifer in the southern mid-United States, has about 2 to 3 decades left of water in it. When that's gone, agriculture is going to have a real hard time. Without water, we won't have nearly the same amount of productivity in our agricultural lands. And around the globe, aquifers are retreating. They're drilling down 3,000 feet in Africa and Asia, chasing retreating aquifers. That's a problem. That's a risk. Peak oil. Well, you know, as we know with the theory of peak oil, as that resource diminishes, the price will go up. Why does that matter to food? It matters to food because oil, hydrocarbons, power the modern agricultural machinery. So as that input becomes more expensive, food will become more expensive, which creates a food security issue. And of course, climate change. Because there's so much demand and use of oil, hydrocarbons in powering modern agriculture, that means that there's a lot of greenhouse gas that gets produced by modern agriculture. It's a big contributor to greenhouse gas. And greenhouse gas and climate change, in turn, has an impact on agriculture in terms of, well, what's anticipated, what's forecasted for the globe. The mid-latitudes are going to be really challenged. It's not just desertification, because you can actually put water in desert areas and grow a lot of food. It's the temperature. Temperatures will go so high that you won't be able to grow food in some areas. That's a challenge. And in terms of the northern climates and the southern climates, where temperature might become more amenable to growing food, it's the extreme weather events and the flooding and the wildfires that will further challenge the capacity to grow food. That's a problem. You should be getting concerned with this. This should be getting our attention. And then production agriculture, modern agriculture. Why is that a problem? Well, the practice of production agriculture is such that half of the topsoil in the United States has disappeared because of that practice. Modern agriculture is responsible for the majority of freshwater pollution in North America. As I was going through the literature in my PhD work, I came up with about 30 different discrete impacts of production agriculture, modern agriculture, which impacts our culture and our environment. It's significant. One of the impacts of production agriculture is the food that we eat, or the semi-food that we eat. Food gets handled how much? An average of 33 times. It's ships 1,500 or so kilometers to get to us, because the agribusiness moves food production around to where it wants it. Food production is being removed from many of our communities. So it gets processed, and we eat food that's not nearly as good for you, really high in fats and sugars, in things that aren't good for you. And the rise of processed food is directly tracks with non-communicable diseases, heart conditions, diabetes, serious issues which cost our society a ton of money. So just tackling it on that basis alone would be good for us. So you can see how this all ties together with public health, with land use planning and so forth. And then global demographics. This is an important one. Last March, what happened? We reached 7 billion people on the globe. In 20 years, we're going to be 8.3 billion, forecast by the Foresight Report. Has anybody heard of the Foresight Report, The Future of Food and Farming? Lord Beddington out of the United Kingdom led that exercise with, I think, 100 different scientists. A large examination of the state of food and farming globally. And they said in the next 20 years, we're going to need 40% more food for the global population, 30% more water, 50% more energy. We're already running up against those ceilings. That's a significant issue. And this is not just more people. This is a more prosperous global population that want to eat like we eat, which is more heavily protein, more meat protein, and that has a lot of significant implications. So, and then of course the last one is this is going to converge to create food shortage issues for us. What happened in 2008? Does anybody remember? We had food shortage globally. We had food riots in 30 countries. They were actually rationing staples in the United States out of a lot of the main retail stores. It reached into Japan. It reached into a lot of developed countries. We saw prices of rice and wheat go up some here. We didn't have food riots. But that's just an indication of what can happen with a few things happening. So we have this convergence of issues, and these all represent significant risks for us.
Can I just put another sensitive thing there related to what you're talking about?
So that was a relatively minor incident. Only food riots in 30 countries. So that's part of the context. The other part of the context I want to give you is, how we got here. And what you see here is a really simple graph. 8,000 BC up to 2000 AD, plus or minus a bit. 10,000 years of history of humankind settlement. I mean, it was 10,000 years ago, in Neolithic times, when humans started using agriculture as a basis for settlements. Settlements, cities, were allowed because of agriculture. Agriculture has been a part of city systems for 10,000 years. Less so now. That little divergence at the end is roughly the last couple of hundred years. And that's roughly when we had industrialization occur. And with industrialization, there's a couple of things that happened here. Through cheap energy, specialization, consolidation, so forth, and 3 revolutions in agriculture. Agriculture went off on the tangent where it's being removed from our city systems, outside of our cities, invisible to most of us. We just assume what food's going to show up in the grocery store. And in terms of city form, not only was agriculture removed from us, but we want to live in areas where there wasn't anything but houses. The single-use zone. So we've had this divergence, which has created a whole bunch of sustainability problems. And as a result of all those consequences, for both agriculture and city design, we're looking at solutions which are going back to sustainability. And there's really an interest in reintegrating growing food and our city systems as a result of these. So that's sort of how, not as much why, but how we got to where we are now. So we had this convergence, we have to think about how we respond to this convergence of issues. I would argue that the role of food production and food systems in sustainable communities is key. If we want resilient communities to be able to withstand shocks, external shocks, I guess an interruption in the supply of food from across the world can have a really significant impact here if we're not producing enough of our own local food. In Vancouver Island, we used to produce most of our food. Now we're down to under 10%. 72 hours of food, is basically what grocery stores keep in stock. So if we had a big supply shock, we're in trouble. That's not resiliency. Resiliency comes with the capacity to absorb those shocks. So how do we get back to resilient, sustainable communities? I think local food production and local food systems is a key part of that. So many agencies are responsible for this, or involved, I should say. Ministry of Health, Agriculture, and increasingly so, there's an awareness of local government's role. So I would group local government's role in 4 categories. We can provide resources for others to do stuff. We can provide services, programs. We can advocate. Advocacy is a powerful tool for local government. And we can regulate, prepare policies. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And what I handed out to you there is a really short summary of some of what I've gleaned from the literature and what I've gleaned from what some municipalities are doing in terms of tools. So this is fundamentally about reintegrating food systems with our communities. This is the wrong way of doing things, but it's the current way. It's the current policy. This is the Ministry of Agriculture, the Agricultural Land Commission's prescription on how you have to separate food production from where you live. This is current good planning gospel. You're not supposed to be able to see, hear, or smell food production. On the left-hand side, you're going to have houses. On the right-hand side, you're going to have agriculture. It's backwards. It's a function of what we've done over the last couple of 100 years. We've become intolerant for food production. You can't see this very well. This is a little town of Gubi in the Tuscany, where you see the olive and the grapes grown right up and into the community. And alongside of suburban roads, you can see olive and grape production and the road verges. And we saw apples be grown there. And you don't see that in road verges here, but a lot of opportunity, a lot of land.
I think part of that buffering, in my understanding, is to protect farmers, not so much prevent the non-farmers from seeing the farming, but it's because our society has a very odd view of what agriculture looks like, and then it starts to smell, and then it looks not so nice, and then you get nuisance and things.
Absolutely. It's cultural. It's culturally based. It's not over in the Tuscany. It is here because of how we built our cities and how we developed our culture so that we are intolerant of those activities. So this is about minimizing conflict. Sometimes we should just put up with it. And sometimes we should embrace it. It's not bad. Any little city spaces are used for growing food in those communities. This is old Europe, right? And it's a part of the culture in a very profound way. Food, good local food, wine, it's a part of the culture, and it's wonderful. It's embraced. So moving right along here, this is, I guess, a screenshot of what I've handed out to you. And I'm not going to go through each of these because there's 3 speakers and there's lots of more information coming to you. So I just wanted to show you that there's quite a bit in terms of providing resources to others to do stuff in terms of funding food policies, for example, funding farmers markets, food access initiatives. Same thing for doing projects and programs. We can undertake these as programs. We can run community gardens. We can fund an agricultural development commission. In North Saanich, we funded an economic development strategy for agriculture. We could actually have a commission in order to, run and oversee that. we could have demonstration gardens. In fact, we do have demonstration gardens. Right in the municipal yard, we turn the municipal property into demonstration gardens for them. We have an orchard which will fit into somebody's backyard and produce 3,000, 4,000 pounds of fruit. That's pretty significant. This is really interesting to me. I found an article in the late 1990s that somebody boldly said, we should have municipal food departments. And as I was doing my research, I found an article written in 1918 by Mr. Saul, a medical health officer for New York City, saying, as a World War I measure, we should have a municipal food department in New York City to make sure that we have food coming in.
Just one bullet point I see missing would be a local purchasing policy by government institutions.
Yes, in fact, I have that here in one of these others. I'm not going to go through all these. Again, as you can see, as we get into advocacies, there's all sorts of things that you can do in terms of advocacy. You can advocate for people to run programs. You can advocate for backyard aquaculture, for example, for vertical gardening, for farmers markets. And what local governments are perhaps most known for, which is regulating and establishing policy, there's a tremendous amount that we can do. North Sandwich, we have done the farm-friendly sign bylaws on the advice of our agricultural community. Zoning bylaws, powerful tool. You can actually enable urban agriculture and prescribe how it occurs in somebody's backyard in terms of separating where composting is and when it occurs during the year. You can do all sorts of stuff with zoning. We haven't gotten there yet, but I anticipate over the next decade that we'll see a lot of interesting innovation in this. We can look at revitalization tax exemption bylaws to support and encourage abattoirs. Well, most communities don't even want them, even if they're in their rural areas. And we in North Central, we have a large agricultural area, and even a local chicken, turkey abattoir is controversial. Imagine going to now and saying we want to help fund that by getting a tax break. It can be controversial, but it's a tool, and that can be used for anything, basically. And in food system mapping, we're doing that in many places, doing it in Campbell River, for example. So there's a range of tools that we can do if we want to take on this mandate. And in terms of what we're doing in North Sandwich, in 2011 we prepared a whole community agricultural strategy, which is different from your normal agricultural area plan. Different in a really important way. It's a little schematic. I'm not expecting you to read it. Just you can see that you got a big circle. That big circle includes all of the food system elements like land, water, farm worker housing, labor, regulations. So all those things that are important in terms of food systems. But the two inner circles, one says non-traditional agriculture, the other is traditional agriculture. In other words, urban agriculture and modern agriculture. And this whole community agriculture strategy did two main things. It said, we're going to plan for those together to see if there's overlap and see if there's a synergy in doing this. And we're also going to do it in a way that it's being planned for the entire community, not just a part of the community, but the entire community. And that was adopted, completed pretty rapidly, and the council of the day, council's changed since then, the council of the day did quite a bit of implementation right away. It supported development of the demonstration gardens. I have a little plan down there, a little map, which shows the lands that we call the Sandown lands. It's an expired harness racing track, about 100 acres. It's in the Agricultural Land Reserve, and they want to do something with it. So the council of the day and staff developed this proposal where we went to them and said, you know what? You take out 10 acres. It changed to 12. You take out 10 acres and develop that and give us 90 acres so we can have that for farming. Reinstate it, the harness racing track, take out down the old buildings and put that back into farming and have that as a community resources forever. That's finally got unanimous approval of our council as of a couple of weeks ago. And the 10, 12 acres that's coming out of the land reserve we're putting the same amount back in from municipal property. Agricultural land reserve, there's a massive gain in terms of agricultural potential. An example of what you can do for local food, if you turn your mind to it, is a policy imperative.
And will there be a relationship between that 10 acres that's being taken out for development and the remaining 90 acres of agriculture? Will they be related in any way? Is it going to be housing, commercial? Or?
Well, that's a really fine question. How were we able to convince them to accept development on only 10 acres and give us all of that? There had to be a lot of value in this. So what we did is we clustered the density in the most intense way we could, which was commercial land. This is beside the Pat Bay Highway. But this will be separated, but not with the traditional agricultural buffer that the land reserve prescribes. That's going to be a buffer comprised of fruit trees and berry crops, as a different way of doing things. Just beside the Pat Bay Highway, it's logical for it to go there. And here's the land that we're putting back in, which this is all in the heart of the land reserve. It makes sense for us, and we do really well with it from a revenue point of view, and we do really well with it from an agricultural point of view. Just as an example, what else? We changed our zoning bylaw to allow domestic gardening as a whole occupation. Changed our business license bylaw so people could sell their own produce out of their backyard. Allow bees throughout the community. Farm worker housing, make that more flexible. Change our sign bylaw. 5 minutes coming up. We developed an information resource on our website for agriculture. We funded farmer forums, and we did an agricultural economic development strategy. Just a couple of examples of our demonstration gardens when we first went in. You can do stuff with the food plants that's every bit as attractive as ornamental, non-productive plants. Their property in red lettuce is our mascot, our blue heron. And the orchard is beautiful, particularly when it's in flower and at its product. And there we are. That's what I have, and we're going to be handing you over to Sheffield. It'll be commercial, like retail stores. Right? That's where the money is for them. That's how we were able to concentrate their interest in a very small portion of land. So yeah, there'll be commercial store. We hope that there's a grocery store. We hope there's a grocery store that will take the produce of the land that's being farmed next to it. And it's incidentally, when you do something like that, that's really good for the community. You find partners coming to the woodworks. All of the Victoria Airport Authority does a lot of development in its lands, and it has to get rid of its topsoil. It's giving us all the topsoil. They're testing to make sure that it's clean and appropriate. They're going to deliver it all free of charge to the site, which is marvelous. It's been probably Mayor Fiddle about 2.5 years since we've been trying to get this approved. The new council came in, they wanted to talk about it now. So and really what's worked well here is that the applicant and the owners who have owned this property basically for 50 years, really, I would say, wonderful people, enlightened, and they want to make this work. So they went and crunched numbers, and the issues were that the new members of council wanted all the improvements that were being required by the land commission to be paid for by the owners. Okay. They're already giving us an asset worth millions of dollars, and we had actually proposed with the previous council to pay for all the improvements through the increase in taxes, which were going to go from $20,000 to $500,000 a year, that we wouldn't have otherwise. And so within 2 years, all the improvements would be paid for with money that comes out of the proposal. They didn't want to do that. It's their prerogative. Thank goodness the owners wanted to carry on, and so we're really grateful for that.
Okay. I just want to say Rob is very diplomatic and is really underplaying that they, Alex and Rob and other people and stuff who fought so hard to make this happen. And I just swapped the land on Friday with the developer, and it is going to be an amazing resource to us in our community. And the one thing that happened is through the negotiation process at council to do this is we had to show community support, and we held a community meeting, and over 300 people came out and jam-packed the church. And 400. Well, I I know many people in a fairly small, I mean, North Saanich isn't a huge community, and just overwhelmingly said this is such a good idea, we need to think about the future, and we really need to support them to do this. So, you know, you're talking about it as if it's really easy, but this has been a really huge process, and what we're getting at the end of the day is going to be a huge legacy for North Saanich. I don't think there's very many communities that can say they have 100 acres of agricultural land that is for teaching and learning around food, incubator farms, larger commercial production, community gardens, like a huge research and a huge resource to us. So I just want to say thank you so much publicly again for all your work. It's really